Hello, how are you guys? I I'm just trying this out. So if you're here, go ahead and start throwing me some comments. In the meantime, I'm going to use my uh, I'm going to use my assistant's. She's queued up a few of the questions that you guys put in the last couple in the weeks. So until you guys fill up my right hand column, I'll be throwing these your way. Sorry if the lighting isn't perfect, but I find I look better in dim lighting. Jared, and I've been told do not start with apologies, so I'm going to do that. Sorry for butchering your names. There, blanket apology. I speak only two languages, as I've probably said before, English and bad English. So here we go, jumping in. Jared Stonecipher says, question for the live stream, seeking advice as a reader, not a writer. Since we readers are often eagerly, impatiently awaiting for more books to dive into, what are some ways for us to be encouraging, supportive, and motivating for authors we enjoy the most? Are there questions or criticisms readers would do best to avoid? Oh man, I should tell you like a list of all the questions to avoid so that I can arm the trolls among you to go seeking out my enemies. Not that there are any trolls among you or any enemies of mine. The questions to avoid. I mean, there's certain things as a writer that get kind of old, which are, when's the next book out, especially if you answer that a bunch. Let's see, what else? Is there going to be a movie deal anytime? Man, we've usually answered that like 20 different times. Are you going to have a video game? Usually can't be answered honestly. If somebody actually does have a video game in the works, because they have NDAs and stuff. I don't, just to head that one off. Don't have one of those in the works. I think anything that starts with author X, I love your work, but that right there, like the author is just going to read past the first clause and they don't even see that, and then they're just going to focus on the second clause, because most authors are we're kind of well, not me. I mean, but other authors are kind of big old softies at heart, artists, and so praise just kind of goes right by the wayside and we don't hear it. And criticism just gets taken as a dagger right to the nut, right to the heart. So ways you can encourage other authors. Well, don't. I mean, I find when other authors write books, that's competition for me. And so I don't want you to say anything nice to them. Next question. I'm kidding. I think if you can be specific in what you say to an author, that's way more valuable. Like I love it when readers have said things like, hey, I was going through a really dark time when my dog died last September. And when I read your book, that chapter on, this thing, it just made me cry and I felt so much better. I felt understood, et cetera, et cetera. If you can say how you connected with a book, how a previous book that the author has written makes you feel, or like, hey, I reread this book and I was so surprised. I was caught up into it, the moment I opened the covers. Then that's a beautiful thing. Like if you can praise us for what we've done, that's nice. That helps us continue on into doing more of that thing, rather than, hey, I want more of that thing that you did. Give me more now. Like most of us are trying to give you more, but like if you can pat us on the back. I mean, other people really need that, not me. I'm totally self-sufficient and rely for none of my emotional needs on fandom. So there you have it. Okay, I'm going to do this as well as I can, scrolling through the right-hand bar without you even noticing that I'm not paying attention to the words that I'm saying right now. Other than your own books, what would you recommend? This is where other authors say, out comes the list of dead authors. I really suggest you read Shakespeare and then go to Homer. Some Bronte sisters would be good, but definitely not anybody alive right now. I'm kidding. What? But I'm still gonna just hop along to the next question. You can look at my Goodreads for some of the things that I've recommended that I've really enjoyed. It's hopelessly out of date because I'm really busy with writing new books rather than updating all my amazing critical thoughts on other books. What is your favorite cure? Lauren Malone asks, what is your favorite cure for writer's block? Or how do you mentally reset when you're having a rough writing day? I have no rough writing days. Every day is perfect. And it happens. I'm finding that usually the difficulty for writer's block is that you're heading a direction that is messed up. You've made a wrong turn somewhere. And so the trick is to start backing up. Like the writer's block can well be, it can be your intuition saying, stop, you're messing things up. Don't keep going this direction because you're going to waste a lot of work. And so you're sitting there writing and you're like, am I wasting my time? I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I'll never get this book published, even if you have a book deal. People are going to hate it. I've learned early on to listen to that voice. That voice is saying, something's wrong about this. You've made a wrong turn. This character isn't going to do this. This doesn't fit with who this person is. You need to go back. You need to give them reasons to do this, or you need to figure out how they can do the thing that they really want to do and make that fit into where you're hoping the plot goes, or figure out if the thing they want to do will actually propel the plot in a new direction that's more interesting. And also, the Dread Pirate Caps Lock informs me that Lauren, you are the one who has made the amazing the female Blackguard shirts, which are awesome, and we are going to have for sale this year. Wow, that sounded like a total segue into Brent with his marketing hat on, but it really wasn't. She made these cool shirts. I think we put them online a while ago, and just to show them off and how cool is that? And my assistant was like, hey, we should try to sell those because I want one. So we're going to actually do that in the next couple months here. All right. Laura Fitzgerald joined. So nice of you to join us, Laura. Sorry, I'm not going to call everybody out. I just that's my she works with me, or actually she's kind of my boss. Yes. What's this? Yes. Sorry. Very subtle there. Did you see how you couldn't even tell I was looking off camera? Man, I need practice, guys. But that's what this is. This is my second time doing this, so please forgive the rough edges. Somebody asked. Mary Harrigan asked, when will we know all the tour dates for The Burning White? I know them already. I know them. Caps Lock, do you know the dates?
Yeah.
Yeah, she knows them. So, everybody who matters already knows, right? Actually, in 2 days, those of you who receive the newsletter will be getting all of those dates. It's just it's a week-long tour. So that means, only 7 stops, which is kind of sad. But my young children who are just starting school will be happy. Let's see. Josh Returning gives me a very nice compliment. Thank you, sir. Have another one. Mickey Mullen says your characters have heroic traits and beautiful flaws. Do you have some kind of check you use to make sure that you write someone exciting without turning them into a MarySue? Finding a good balance between heroism and realism. I like to think this just comes out of my my own understanding of human nature, I guess, of people. Like I've met people who are really, really good at certain things and just mind-blowingly good at stuff. And they tend to be lopsided. Yeah, you know, like some of us when we were in high school, like there was like this myth of the well-rounded individual, which meant you had to be like good at everything. And nobody's good at everything. And it turns out that was really horrible advice for admissions to college as well. Like college is looking for people who are, I don't know, ovals or something. Like you're really good at a few things. And most people are really good, if at anything, at a few things. And I wanted to, I remember I knew this kid, wait, this is Facebook, maybe I can't say this. He might be one of my friends. I'm gonna say it. That's fine. He'll have to forgive me. I knew this kid in high school who was still one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And he was talking about some problems he was having in his life, or talking about his family. And here's this brilliant guy, and he starts crying, and he's like, "That's weird. I don't even know why I'm crying." And he's just this super logical mind. And he didn't get it. He was so lopsided. He was so intellectually brilliant that he couldn't figure out why he was crying when he was talking about, you know, his some rough stuff in his family life. It was like, dude, you are really overdeveloped on one side and really underdeveloped on another side. And it's like, well, we all only get 24 hours a day. So if you meet people who are extremely good at certain things, they're probably not very good at other things. And so I wanted to incorporate that with my characters. It's like, this is another segue, but like I met a guy once on the train actually, and dude had he was on the phone constantly the whole time we were on this train ride from Seattle to Portland, and he had a bunch of he'd had a bunch of like dental work done on his teeth, and it was pretty clear to me that he had been and you know we ended up talking, and he'd been really hardcore into hardcore drugs, and he got his life cleaned up, and now he was a manager of bands, and you know he reeled off a bunch of, you know, big name bands that, you know, I'd never heard of because I'm old. But he, you know, he would go ahead of the band, and he would set up stuff in the town, and then he'd manage all the crap that would go wrong, and he'd bail them out of jail or whatever needed to happen. But what he said was, the guys that you know in bands, or the women you know in bands, are almost always, he said, they stop growing up at the moment they become famous. He said, and usually these people are super awkward people. They were the awkward kids in high school. You know why? Because all they did all throughout high school and before is they played guitar. And like, that's the only thing they learned how to do. They didn't learn how to have a social life, or they wouldn't have been becoming amazing guitarists and vocalists and songwriters and all this stuff. He said, and his thought, which isn't really connected to what I'm talking about right now, was once they get famous, they kind of pop out there, then they can get away with all that stuff they shouldn't have been able to get away with socially, and they don't grow up, which, you know, you might be able to apply that to a few pop musicians that we all could name right now. But I thought that was fascinating. And it's really kind of true. If you spend your whole adolescence doing something, you can get really, really, really good at it, but you can't be good at everything all the time. And that character is boring to me anyway. So I like to have characters who are really good at something, because I want them to be interesting as we read about them. At the same time, not be good at everything, because that person is equally boring and infuriating. And I won't cast any stones. Okay. Sophia Dan Eccleston says, what are your tips for writing a good villain and a good ending? I suck at those. I'm sorry. Me too. Oh, not supposed to say that when I'm supposed to be promoting a finale. A good. I think my joy at writing a villain is in finding the villainy in myself, And it's kind of and then as with your good parts, just exaggerating those. Like if you've been in traffic, I was in traffic the other day, and I had this yesterday, and I had this thought of what would it be like, and I can't use this as a novel idea because I write secondary world fantasy, to be a low scale malevolent character. Like I was driving behind a student driver, right? And I was like, ooh, well, I mean, what I really thought was, oh, student driver, I've got to cut them some slack, when they're coming to a full stop at the stop sign and like waiting for like 5 seconds. Like they're never going to really drive this way, but there's somebody with them there, whatever. And I thought, I could give this person the experience of like, I could ride right on them and I could beep at them and I could yell at them. I could just kind of low scale terrorize them. And I had this thought of a hero, of course, of a novel who would go around doing all those low scale things that like not like punching people in the face as they walk around life, but just looking at somebody and being like, you are really ugly. That's astonishing. I've never seen somebody as ugly as you are. And then, going about their day and like just saying exactly the cruel things to people that you hope nobody actually says. And I thought, wouldn't that be fun? And there are some people to whom that probably is fun. And there's obviously people who are not super creative about that, but who are, villainous in their everyday life. So I like to try to find the heart of a character. I like to try to find a flaw. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one that I have. In some cases, like that one, it's a flaw I kind of wish I had. Gosh, I wish I were a little more jerky sometimes. So I take it out in my fiction. So that's where you guys get to enjoy it. So and then you live it. You go, okay, I'm going to crank that up to 11, and then I'm going to play, and I'm going to see how that feels. Again, without cranking up their and some of them don't need to have I'm trying to save the world goals. They can have completely selfish goals. This thing of like even villains are the hero of their own story is like, I don't really buy that. I mean, some people are just jerks, and that's just like, they don't think about it. They don't have a grand master plan. They just are. They're just jerks, and they think your morality system is weakness. I mean, if you do any study into psychopaths, it's actually really fascinating. And we probably all of us know far more of them than we think we do. They see your morality system as simply holding you back. And if you were strong, you would do the same thing they do, which of course isn't true. Okay, next, let me see. Who would win in a fight between Kylar and Kip? Neither of them has arms long enough to reach the other. So that would be very, very difficult to punch across universes. So I'm gonna. Sorry. Brandon Billings. Billing. Sorry, singular. I leave those questions to guys like you. How do I get the newsletter? How you get the newsletter? That's Eric Anderson. You go to my website. There should be a little banner, pop-down banner. Unless you're like, most sane people, and you click like go away, and you make that thing go away, so you don't have to deal with, pop-down banners, which I totally get. But if you've done that, it will remember and it'll try not to harass you, because I don't like to harass you unless you're asking for it. So you have to, you would have to go to it through a different browser. So just, if you're using Chrome, use something else and go in and it'll pop up, and then you can sign up. We have had a couple people who got the wrong chapter when they signed up. So if that happens to you, just email me, and Dread Pirate Caps Lock we'll send you those teaser chapters, and then you will be signed up for the newsletter. So that'll be fine. Okay. Uh, let's see. Chris Murray says, "Did you always?" This is mildly spoilerish, but you're just gonna have to forgive me. Says, "Did you always know Karris was going to be the next White?" Yes, that was always the point. That was always where she was headed. That's why I had her be Aurelia Pilar's errand girl. She was teaching her the ropes, and so from the very beginning, it was like, this is where this character is going to end up by the end of this series. So I tend to have a lot of those things of like, okay, this character is going to end up here. They're going to have to learn all these things. They're going to have to figure out sort of these different lessons as we go along. And I hope I can make that really interesting. I hope I can make there be logical and reasonable way stations along that character arc through 3 books, because it's a trilogy. Yeah, crap. Okay. What colors would I draft? I think I would be a peasant in this world. I would be a serf, probably. Dang it, that sucks. Oh well. Yeah, Barry, thanks. Yeah, I had to get the plug in there. Actually, I did not prep for this with how am I going to plug my various books. I was actually working on my next book, and then I realized I was like, oh crap, I've got that thing. It's in 10 minutes. Quick, let's log on. And I realized I'm not an admin of my own author page, which seems like an oversight. But I realized at first, I thought it was an oversight. Then I realized they did this on purpose. They knew what I might do if I were the admin to my own author page. So they're carefully managing me. I'm being handled is really what it comes down to. Dang it. So anyway, I didn't have a big sales checklist. My assistant was like, hey, we could publicize this over on this thing. And I was sort of like, no, let's not. I don't want it to be too many people. So sometimes I'm really bad at the self-promotion game. Which means I need your help in that. Wait, that was good, wasn't it? Wasn't it good? I don't promote myself, so you guys need to go do that for me. Awesome. Okay. D. Benjamin Bond Courtney. I probably shouldn't read this one because I know this guy. And if you see him harass me online, here's a tricky thing. Like I early on, I made this terrible error on Facebook, and that is I let my editor friend me on Facebook. That was a disaster. No, I'm kidding. Actually, the thing I didn't do when I was starting out is I didn't think, do I want to have a separate, Facebook for my like authorial identity versus my my real identity, and so I just let anybody be friends with me because I was so thrilled that anyone would want to. Like I said earlier, people who stay in their basement working on a skill, that was me with writing early on. So, so anyway, sometimes you will see people harass me on my Facebook page, and you'll be like, oh, Brent likes to be harassed by random fans. It's like, actually, that's a guy I went to college with, and he is a very interesting character, we'll say, and we like to toss Molotov cocktails at each other's boats across the way. Not literally from me, officer. I had nothing to do with that particular incident on Lake Bobis. Anyway, so sometimes you'll see Benjamin Bond Courtney will light me up. So I probably shouldn't read this, but it's too late now. I've already started. Andross is such a deeply developed, vile character. You spelled Andross wrong. Just going to point that out. I wouldn't do that to most people because that's a jerk move. But Ben needs it. He's clearly deeply developed, vile character, but he's clearly had diplomacy and charisma needed to get where he is. Is there anyone you looked at for inspiration for him? Someone successful, powerful, revered, and willing to do vile things to their own children? You're just laying that out there for me, aren't you, Ben? I'm going to take the high road this time. For Andross, I used pieces of different people I know. I'm not an author, and I know other people do this, and I sometimes I wish I would just do this because it might be easier for me. But I don't do this. I don't just take people I know and plug them into a plot. William Somerset Maugham was famous for doing that, and it lost him a ton of friends, but he was famous enough that he, could always refill his quiver with new friends who he would burn through. Or I'm mixing my metaphors. Like, dang it, this is the terrible thing about Facebook Live. Can't edit that metaphor. So what I do is I find somebody who I know who's intensely charismatic, and like anywhere they go, this guy. Actually, I know two guys like this, and even in college, people just liked them. Like these are the kind of guys who would get invited to be groomsmen in like 20 weddings, and you're like, obviously lots and lots of people think you're really, really good friends with them. And those kind of people are just startling when you meet them, and then you sit there, and if you're a writer, and you go, how does he do that? How does he make that work? Why do people like him so much? And then I go, I sort of divorce that little piece of them. When I look at Andross doesn't have anything in common with those guys except a little bit of the charisma. More of the charisma is Gavin takes that charisma piece. And then I'll take other pieces of them. So Andross isn't a 1-to-1 or even a 3-to-1 kind of person. I wanted to take somebody who was really fun to write and would say really atrocious things to people. And Andross was kind of that guy for me. And it's funny. It's on the one hand really, really freeing to have a character who's a complete jerk and will say everything. And then there's the times where I write a line from Andross, and every time I would come back across it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. Like, that is going to hurt some people's feelings. Like, that was way over the line. And, I was like, well, great. So I left it in. But I felt a little guilty every time I came across one of those lines. He is not a nice man. Okay. No, I'm not going to do that one. Chris Schinner says, love your work. Any clues for what's next? What's next? Do I want to talk about that? It's a little bit awkward because I have two different things I'm kind of working on at the same time, which I've never done before. And I don't really like working on two things at the same time. But I have an in-world, in Lightbringer world novella idea that is close to being ready for me to write it, but there's just some sticky places with it, and I'm like, okay, the ideas I've had so far, they tick a bunch of boxes. It fills in some nice gaps in questions some of you're going to have after you finish Lightbringer. But anything I sell, I want it to have a real point. I don't want it to be I don't want it to be like, oh, I bet if I sold this, I could cash in and I'd make X amount of dollars on this, just because people will buy it just because I made it. I wanted to have, I mean, it sounds a little cheesy, but I wanted to have artistic value. I wanted to add something. I want to do something that I'm proud of, and that idea is not quite there. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do that little novella. Sorry, I'm not going to tell you what it's about because it would kind of spoil some things for Lightbringer. So you can ask that again after you've read the book. The other thing that I'm working on is I'm writing another book set in the Night Angel world, and I'm thinking right now of how much I want to spoil about that. Not much. So it would come after the events of Night Angel, probably fairly soon after, and probably have certain crossover characters that you have seen before, and that's as much as I'm going to give away right now. And so, but basically, what I'm doing right now is I'm writing down a lot of thoughts for that. I'm sketching down plot points. I'm sketching down character arcs. I'm also using this time as what I kind of call my professional development. I'm actually taking a little bit of a breather, which I have not been able to do in kind of 11 years. It's not really a breather, but it's like a little, I call it my professional development time of like, I'm reading some books about writing. Yes, you keep reading books about writing even after you've written, 8 novels and some other things. Like you keep learning, you keep working on your game. So I'm reading some books, I'm listening to some lectures. Have you seen those? Oh, here, this will be like an ad. I'm on Facebook. Have you seen those things on Facebook of like master classes? And then they have this really professionally and really hooky little thing about, Neil Gaiman talks to you about it, and then he talks in his accent, and you're like, oh, that's fascinating. I got to buy that. Well, I got hooked on that. So I've actually been watching a bunch of those. Yes, you can get the pass. Oh man, I needed to get this sponsored by Masterclass because now I'm like blurbing their material. I've been watching a bunch of those. So that's been really fun. And reading a bunch of writing books and writing a lot of ideas down. So I've been told by people who know far better than I do that I should wrap this up in 2 to 3 minutes. So let me grab just a couple more questions and then we'll call it a day. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope I hope I've been somewhat entertaining. So let's see. How much do you have to say? Zofia Kolesko says, how much do you have to say in terms of translation of your books? I.e., do the translators contact you to get more details, or do you only get to see their final work when the translated book is out? I have had translators contact me, and I love it when they do because I love being helpful. In some cases, I've even had translators help me flesh out things or point out little, tiny little continuity errors or was it continuity error? Anyway, like, hey, I need to know if this character who you only refer to by their position name is female or male. And I'm like, actually, we've been in a room with a bunch of different characters and I didn't want to go into detailed descriptions of everybody because it didn't matter to the reader at the time. But I was able to be like, oh, well, she's female. And then I sort of built the character and was able to tell the translator, whatever. I think that was a Polish translator. She was amazing. So they ask me questions sometimes. I love it when they do because I want to give my readers in all countries as good of a translation as possible. I've worked a ton with Simon Vance. That's an adaptation, not a translation. And I'm just going to tell you guys, he finished. That book will be out on the same date. And he told me he had to re-record a few sections because he got too choked up. So there you have it. I think he was relieved to be done with such a terrible novel. So, but I'm not sure. I didn't really follow that up. Let's see. We'll try to hit one last question and then we'll call it a day. I'm being told to pitch things a little harder. So, yes. So the pre-order link for that Audible thing should be up, well, today, or actually it was supposed to be up on Monday. Obviously it's not. So that's annoying. It is available for pre-order if you don't use Audible on Hachette's website. So if you Google Hachette audio, you'll be able to find it. And I'm sure there's a ton of great questions that I didn't get to, but I've been jabbering at you guys for 34 minutes. So thanks so much for coming to join me, and I will try to do this again in not too long. Take care. Bye.